The Alex Goldstein Property Show.
StrayFM.
Welcome again to the Alex Goldstein Property Show. I'm Alex Goldstein of Alex Goldstein Property Consultants in Harrogate, and this is the fast-paced property show giving you industry expert insight into the world of property, estate agency and the related business sectors within it. Insider tips, tricks and know-how are all jam-packed into the show, so you really can make the best informed decision when it comes to buying or selling your home. Whether you're a first-time buyer, upsizer, downsizer, experienced property developer, or have a portfolio empire, or simply just have an interest in the local or national market, then this is the show for you. I will be speaking with and getting industry expert insight from some of the most successful property-related businesses and professionals that Yorkshire and indeed the UK has to offer, ranging from regional chartered surveyors all the way through to some of the UK's most well-renowned multinational firms such as PricewaterhouseCoopers. We're available for podcast download on the first of every month, so make sure you sign up to Alex Goldstein and the StrayFM social media accounts to get an early reminder of this and to get great property tips whenever you need. In this one show, we will be getting the inside track from Alison Guggenheim, a specialist letting agent in Harrogate, on the pitfalls to avoid in this sector. We also discuss how best to differentiate between estate agents when selling, plus chatting with Nick Bye from Vacant Property Security on what to do if you have an empty commercial premises and the security issues to avoid. We of course also have the Alex Goldstein top tips. So much to cram in, so let's get straight on with it.
Property news with Alex Goldstein.
StrayFM.
This month we are of course discussing the EU referendum and that the UK is out. Whilst there seems to be panic setting in, let's look at the facts as they stand at the time of recording rather than getting embroiled in the current media frenzy. Both the EU and the UK want to get the withdrawal right. That's a fact. This is in both our interests as we both equally stand to lose and gain in equal measure. Only the UK can invoke Article 50 and not the EU. So in other words, any withdrawal is done on our time frame and when we are ready. The Bank of England and Chancellor George Osborne have already said that they will do whatever it takes to keep the market stable, and again, that's in everyone's best interests. There's been £250 billion worth of funds set aside should we ever need to use it. On top of that, got low stable inflation and fairly solid employment rates. Research out the other morning from Coutts Bank shows that most political events do not have a lasting impact on investment outlook, and they, Coutts, do not see Brexit as an exception. Coutts also went on to say that one of the more reliable warning signs for a big downturn in the markets is the risk of a US recession, which is seen as very unlikely in the next 12 to 18 months. The result is, of course, a surprise to many, and especially the city who were betting the other way, and we all knew the result would be close. The financial markets are currently going through an adjustment to find their new levels, and there is always going to be some initial short-term turbulence. We must remember that the bottom line is that there will be a lengthy renegotiation process, and it's not a case of just flicking a switch one day and getting a new set of circumstances the next. This is going to be a very gradual process over a minimum of 2 years. So therefore, on the property side, my advice is hold your nerve. Yes, there's financial turbulence occurring currently, but this was always going to be the case. There's already speculation that Bank of England reducing interest rates to 0.25%, and if they do this, mortgage rates could be cheaper. If so, it will mean greater property market activity as money is cheap to borrow. The property market relies on supply and demand, and people will always need to buy and sell property. Current local property supply levels remain weak, and therefore there is an argument for property prices locally to hold firm. The underlying strengths of the UK economy remain in place, and property has always been proven to be the best medium to long-term investment you can make. So in conclusion, take your time, hold your nerve, and above all, don't panic. It's great to have Alison Guggenheim from Linton Smith, who are letting agents actually right in the centre of town here. Great to have you here, Alison.
Thanks for inviting me, Alex.
Getting straight to the heart of it, I suppose you often come across and you hear on the grapevine that estate agents and letting agents, they're all tarnished with a similar sort of brush. They're not very reputable. They're sort of, dare I say at times, sort of lazy. I dare say you feel that that's a fairly unjustified comment. How do yourself and Linton Smith sort of fit within that context?
Okay, well, I think it's simply because those particular agents just aren't doing their job properly. There's a lot of different aspects to lettings and property management, and what you need is an experienced team of property managers in place to deal with the complex legal and compliance issues that you face, and also people who've got robust systems in place to minimise any issues you may encounter through your tenancies. As a firm, as a business, we take a very proactive approach to problem solving and try and help both landlords and tenants through our experiences that we've built up over 50 years now of property management, and to help them through the difficult times.
As a landlord, what do you actually need to look for in a letting agent? What are the, I suppose, issues that they could come across, and what do they actually need to prepare? Say they've got a property and they want to get it onto the market. What do they need to be mindful of? Okay,
well, legally, to advertise your property, you need an energy performance certificate, an annual landlord gas safety certificate to make sure all your gas appliances are safe, a check of your electrics, again, just to make sure that you're not putting anybody at risk, there's no harm or anything there, and obviously insurance for the landlord's building.
How can you ensure as a landlord, how do you find the right tenant on the right basis, I suppose, quickly? Because you don't want a property sitting there idle for so much time. No. What are the things you actually need to get right as a landlord to make sure you get that right tenant in place?
Absolutely. It's very unusual, really, for any property that is correctly marketed to have any kind of void period in Harrogate now. The tenant demand is growing month by month, and we are seeing a massive shortage of all sorts of houses within the Harrogate area. So really, to make sure that you don't get this void period, you need to basically present your property in the best possible way, and by that I mean make sure it's clean and tidy. Any external areas, any gardens are well presented, and that it's obviously clean inside and well decorated, because you want these people to treat it as a home. And if you're expecting them to move in with substandard accommodation, quite honestly, they're not going to treat it as you would want them to treat it, and it will lead to further problems down the line. So
it's almost having it in, if you like, show home type.
Absolutely,
standard.
Yes.
And I'm assuming, sort of, does it matter whether it's furnished or unfurnished? Is there a preference where we are at the moment, or?
I think generally it's easier to let properties which are unfurnished, and then perhaps to have an agreement where you may be willing to provide one or two pieces of furniture if required. It depends if you're talking about a big detached family home or a small bed sit or a 2-bed new starter home, something like that. But generally it's better to let the properties unfurnished, and then as a landlord you don't have that issue at the end of the tenancy where your family heirlooms or items of high value have been left in the property and perhaps have been slightly marked or damaged, or just general wear and tear. An issue.
Bit of a hot topic, but Menwith Hill, the number of employees there, I gather, and everyone sort of understands, they're all going back to the States, and they were a massive driving force behind the sort of the lettings market. Have you noticed much of an impact on that at the moment?
Yeah, certainly the last 18 months, the decrease in the number of Menwith Hill workers has had a big impact on the certainly the luxury end of the Harrogate housing market, and I think that's particularly come through in perhaps sort of the upper end of the 2-bed apartment rates. We're seeing they're certainly coming down slightly in price, and there's less demand for those at the moment.
Okay, and then I suppose on the flip side, if I'm a tenant and I'm actively looking, how can I suppose, put myself into the best position so that Alison knows about me and I'm going to find that great property to rent out? What do I need to do from my tenancy perspective?
Okay, you need to make sure that you can move quickly, and when you go to a viewing, if you're happy with it, that you're in a position to decide quickly.
So because there and then, do you mean you can strike a deal literally on the doormat?
Strike a deal, yes, or certainly within 24 hours. At the end of the day, it's not our decision who gets to let the properties, it's always the landlord, so we have to get as much information as possible to give to the landlord after the viewing for him or her to make that decision. But they, if we feel that person is the right person for the property, then let's close the deal.
And does it matter about credit reference
Absolutely.
and that side of things? So again, if you're a tenant and prior to going down the route with yourselves and finding a property, you almost want to go on one of these websites and sort of do all the background checks and make sure that's all in line. I guess, do you look into that nowadays as well?
Yes, before anybody can move into a property, we'll do a full credit reference check on them, which will include employment checks, salary checks, previous landlord reference, credit reference as well. So anything that could come up, you're much better to be honest and upfront about that at your viewing, because it's not something we would look brightly on if it comes out at a later date, once the application's been fees being paid and it's off the market.
And do you find, do most letting agents do that? Is that the standard out there, doing that number of checks?
It is the standard now, yes.
Is it?
Yes.
Fine. How do you get around it? You hear scaremongery, albeit that, the tenant abuses the property, they paint the walls all black, for example. What do you do from a letting agent perspective, and indeed a landlord perspective, to sort of mitigate that, to ensure that doesn't happen, or there are no real guarantees? What can you do?
Well, firstly, I can reassure your listeners that it happens very rarely in Harrogate. We've got very good properties and very good tenants and very good landlords on the whole. And where there is accidental damage, or what we would class as excessive wear and tear during the tenancy, most tenants are happy to contribute towards the cost of repairing or replacing that at the end of the tenancy. It's really important that landlords and agents do make regular inspections of the property, so any issues that may come to light you can deal with effectively at the beginning of the tenancy rather than at the end of the tenancy. And we lodge all our deposits through the deposit protection scheme.
I was going to ask about that. How does that actually work? Because this is relatively new, all of the deposit schemes and that sort of things. Right. Just to fill everyone in on this and what it is.
So the deposit protection scheme, or the DPS, is a government-backed scheme where an agent or a landlord taking a deposit is required to lodge that deposit within 30 days of the start of the tenancy. What a good agent will do is they will go around at the start of the tenancy before they hand the keys over and make a full written and photographic inventory of all the items in the house and the condition at the time the tenants make that commitment to sign the tenancy agreement. That then stands as the benchmark to assess any wear and tear or damage or dilapidations at the end of the tenancy, when another inventory is undertaken with the photographs, and you can compare photographic evidence on the table to see
and resolve it.
Absolutely. There are occasions where it isn't possible to agree the retentions and the dilapidations, and at that stage, unfortunately, it has to go through the DPS adjudication process.
So it goes a bit more legal in that case, but then it actually goes through the government scheme for them to resolve.
That's right. At the end of the day, the DPS actually hold the tenant's deposit, so the tenant doesn't need to worry that it's held with the agent or the landlord. So the idea is that they can take increased sort of confidence that their money is being held by a third party.
Is there any sort of major or significant difference, I suppose, from a tenant's viewpoint, that if the property that they're in is managed either by you as the letting agent, or indeed it's, I suppose, managed privately by the landlord, are there things from a tenant's point of view that you should be mindful of when entering into an agreement, or because of, again, these government schemes, it doesn't really necessarily matter nowadays?
I think if you're renting from a private landlord, always check where he's going to lodge your deposit and make sure you get the appropriate paperwork so you know where that money's held, and make sure that obviously you're renting from someone that you feel you can get along with, perhaps someone that's local or has local contacts in place. So if you've got a repair, you're not dealing perhaps with an overseas landlord that it may take 2 or 3 days to get in touch with, and you make sure that obviously your repairs can be actioned promptly.
There are some very significant organisations really that are sort of specialists in the letting side of things. I know you've got sort of 2-3 offices locally. Where do you feel that Linton Smith adds value or does something that's different in comparison to the bigger sort of setups, if you like?
Well, as a business, we're set up and run by landlords and a very experienced team of property managers, and we are independent, and we do offer a very specialised property management service. We're extremely proud of what we've built up over the last 8 years, and we continue to grow and expand really on the recommendation of our landlords. So I think that speaks volumes for the way we operate. Yeah, and I'd just like to stress that we are local people who know the market, and as a business we've invested in technology to be able to offer our landlords and clients a login portal to access their property information 24/7, which obviously helps them at that awful time of year when you have to do your tax returns or any other accounting information you need to do. We offer wide-angle photography, a 360-degree virtual tours and floor plans on all our properties now. So I think my other tip for landlords when they're marketing their property is also to make sure that the agent has time to do a thorough market appraisal of your property. Make sure you've got the best photographs and it's presented in the best light. And also, my advice would be don't necessarily go with the agent who thinks he can get you the best price. Sometimes it's that time it takes by holding on to that final £25, whatever it is you're looking for, that will eat into your costs because you've got a longer void period. And sometimes it's those tenants who feel they are paying top dollar on their rent will demand everything to be 100% perfect in their property 100% of the time, which may cost you more in the long run with monthly repair bills.
Now, I have to say from my experience, I think certainly the marketing side of things, so many letting agents just don't even bother doing sort of floor plans, and it can be sort of infuriating if you're trying to point in my instance, a client in the right direction. I suppose I always like to finish on this, and I suppose you've got the luxurious position, some would argue, that you're seeing a lot of properties day in, day out. You must have a couple of funny stories up your sleeve that have happened in your career. Do share.
Well, it never ceases to amaze me how many tenants and people will open the door with no clothes on. It's not something I do, but there's a lot of people out there who don't seem to mind.
And they've just been caught out.
Yes, yeah, not that they've been too embarrassed.
It does happen. And just remind everyone, Alison, if they wanted to sort of touch base with you, what's the best number to reach you on?
Absolutely. Feel free to call me at the office. It's 01423 817777, or you can contact us via our website, which is www.lintonsmith.co.uk.
That's great, Alison. Really appreciate your time and thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
The Property Hospital, StrayFM.
This week, I'm answering a question from Karen.
Alex, help! I have seen 3 estate agents. They all say the same, they all promise to do the same things. I have no idea how to choose between them. I really don't know what to do.
Great question, and one I actually commonly come across. We've got to remember, most estate agents are excellent salespeople. In addition, some use tactics such as quoting high valuations or putting in low fees just to entice you to sign up with them, so no wonder you're in a bit of a spin. What every homeowner seems to overlook is that the agent sat in your kitchen telling you about the virtues of their company is not actually the person involved the most with incoming telephone and walk-in inquiries. This falls to their front of house team. Whilst the agent in your home will see an element of these inquiries, their office-based team are the ones who actually sell your property. So therefore, my advice, Karen, is to mystery shop your agent as a prospective purchaser, see how well you're treated and how knowledgeable the staff are. If the agents you saw are all along similar lines, this is the ultimate test on how to differentiate. I hope that helps.
The Property Hot Seat.
StrayFM.
Name.
Nicholas By.
Business.
VPS.
Time in property.
2 years.
Talking about vacant property specialists, just talk everyone through exactly what you do, because I think it's a really hot area at the moment, especially if you've got a commercial premises. Just talk in just general terms the services that you guys offer.
So my role and responsibility is to work with a broad range of clients in and around the Yorkshire and North East region. Our organisation VPS is national, however, and is to look at the risks that vacant properties incur on a day-to-day basis. So that can be from a vandalism perspective, theft, or the most important one in around these areas is the insurance aspect of that as well.
Yeah, and I know you've also got this sort of specialist guardian type service, which you hear bits and pieces of, but I don't think anyone's really got any idea as to what that actually entails, and obviously I suppose the financial benefits of doing that as well, if you have an empty, I don't know, hotel or bed and breakfast or something like that.
Absolutely, yeah. So the Guardian piece started off in central London, and the idea behind the Guardian piece is that we've moved so far on from the original security, which is just going to a commercial property, putting steels on it and putting alarms on it. At the end of the day, that's a cost to a commercial client. So the idea behind the Guardian piece is VPS go and source, vet and CBRE check tenants that can actually live in these properties. So if you can imagine, you've got a large property, let's say in the central London, you've got a vacant hotel, that may cost you upwards of £2,000 to secure on a weekly basis. VPS can provide guardians, which would actually generate a revenue based on the fact that we will charge them a weekly rental for the property. And the most important thing, which is why the Guardian piece is becoming so popular across the UK, is that actually, because there are living people, specialist guardians that we provide, that would reduce business rates down to council tax.
Yeah, that's a bit of a key point at the moment. Certainly business rates keep on creeping up and up and up.
Yes.
Who are these tenants? How do you find them? Who are these sort of individuals that sort of come in and say, well, I'll live in a couple of rooms in the hotel?
Yeah.
How do you find them, and how do they find you?
Well, a lot of people seem to think that we go to the local music festivals and hold a board up saying that we've got some cheap rooms for rent in Leeds, York or Sheffield. But we actually have a specific Guardian application system where we have got a portal where we store all the Guardian's details. Now, these are professional people. These are doctors or nurses or people that work in the professions that are looking to stay in a certain city due to placements for 6 to 9 months. We have to do 2 years background checking. They have to earn a certain amount of money, and we actually go in and check the properties on a week-in-week basis to see that they are working in line with our mitigation.
So I mean, it's literally not Fred off the street. I mean, as you said, these are very professional individuals, and it may be that they've got to be based up in Yorkshire during the week because of their job, but their family and their base happens to be, I don't know, back down south in London, and it's that type of individual that you get.
Yeah, exactly. And the great thing about the Guardian services with VPS is it's not a case of we will find the person and then go, there you go, Alex, you need to go sort the property out. We will actually make the property Guardian worthy for you. So if that's putting partition walls in, putting toilet facilities in, because there are certain regulations that you've got to abide by.
Sure.
There is, but we actually do all those services in-house. So we can actually take a property and say, right, that is perfectly suitable for Guardians, and then in an ideal world we would come back to you a couple of months later and say, right, this is your saving from business rates to council tax, and we've made your property Guardian worthy.
And what happens on the reverse side if it's not a livable type property? I don't know, it's a warehouse or it's a dilapidated pub and you can't actually put an individual in there, or it's not what the landlord wants. Fine, you've got the sort of, I suppose, the security in terms of just boarding it up, but then it's a fairly ugly site. Are there any variations of that, or any things behind the scenes that you can, I suppose, make it more aesthetically pleasing?
Yeah. I mean, one thing that we developed for that exact reason was a product called Decals.
Okay.
Now, we do provide the steel screens, and you're right, they are some of the most ugly things you've seen in your life and probably wouldn't suit Harrogate Town Centre very well. So Decals are specific steel screens that are designed to place on the outskirts of the property with the exact same security level as steel screens, but you can give us a design that will go on the front of those steel screens. So as you can imagine, they can be either made up to doors, windows, stained glass windows if you fancy being really fancy, or anything like that, and those can be created completely bespoke to what you want to blend into the high street.
So you're literally printing, I don't know, a giant sticker to look like the facade of
exactly
said property.
Exactly that. And there are examples where, unless you go up extremely close to these properties, if you were driving past, it would be very difficult to notice the difference. And that's not just to maintain, with a local community, so it doesn't stick out. But I would know that if I was a prospective buyer driving past these sites, the decals would look much more attractive in terms of where I see that property going, as opposed to just steel screens that are placed on the outside of them. So
yeah, absolutely. Because I suppose everyone then, if you've got exposed windows, everyone's about sort of worried about vandalism and graffiti and dare I say sort of people getting inside.
Absolutely.
How does it actually work from a pure security point of view when you talk about sort of cameras and remote sort of videoing, monitoring?
Yeah, so because we're the one-stop shop when it comes to these solutions in terms of what we can provide, the alarms that we offer that have been developed built and installed by our in-house teams, because situations are always going to arise, no matter if you put steel on the property or guardians, where unfortunately there may be break-ins at the site.
Yeah.
Now, because of these alarms that we've developed in-house that are responded to by our in-house team, we've got 27 service centres nationally across the UK with over 500 staff that are on the ground. So you can imagine we've got our own RVRC system, which is basically our own alarm monitoring system, which is based in Manchester. So all those are recorded and monitored by our in-house team. So if someone does, for whatever reason, break into the property, we've got the ability to respond to that in a very timely manner. The great things about the alarms is based on the fact that a lot of these properties are vacant. You don't want to be having to switch utilities on and the risk of utilities being left on.
Right.
They are all wireless and they are all battery powered as well. So there's no need to have any wires running around the property, and there's no need to have any form of power running to it either.
And then obviously it's not a case of someone creeping in and cutting a wire and they can get in, because again all of that side of thing is backed up.
Exactly, and the actual alarm unit that we create itself is made out of the same material as Riot Shield. It's got an anti-tamper device. It's not one of those kind of things that you would just stick on the wall and you can go and pull off.
Yeah.
There are actually videos on YouTube with people taking baseball bats to these things, and so much so that if they do manage to do some damage to it, it will lay down and play dead, but will still carry on sending a signal to our service centre.
Got you. So you really are secure.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you're away, and we're obviously, I suppose, certainly the commercial owners mindful, worried that given the summer sort of supposedly upon us with the weather soon, everyone hopes. You've obviously got summer parties and raves, and you always hear about them sort of crashing into a sort of an office or a warehouse. What sort of thing could you provide if you were an empty warehouse and you're worried about that? What would you go through? I know we talked about the screens and the videos, but are there any other sort of pointers that you would give for those sort of landlords or owners?
Absolutely. I mean, there are certain elements that would apply to certain properties depending on the size of it. The most important thing and the most important message that I give to my clients is that the solution is cheaper and easier than the cure.
Yeah.
So once people like that actually get into the property, it's extremely difficult to get them out. So simple things like concrete barriers that we can provide over the entrance. A lot of people don't think like that because people cannot actually get the cars or vehicles onto the site. So concrete barriers are a massive deterrent for people like that. So that is one of the biggest tips that I can give to people, to look at the simple approach, because sometimes the simplest solution is the most effective one.
What about the point of insurance? Because again, obviously, if a property's lived in, and we talked about the Guardian side of things, your insurance is going to be one thing. If you've got a vacant property, how does that sort of work, and what are the measures you should take?
Yeah, we work with the biggest commercial insurers. We work with AXA, we work with Alliance and Standard Life, and we are their preferred supplier purely because of the measures that we go to ensure that a property is insurance compliant. Now, if I was to say to you what you think you would need to do to ensure that a property is of a certain standard when it is vacant, could you give me some of the things that you believe?
Everyone always thinks of sort of locking up the doors, turning off the lights, and sorting out the services, and as you said, probably putting it in a video camera. But I guess there's always going to be the small things that everyone's going to forget.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. So it's little things like, and a lot of people don't know this, that the sealing of the letterbox.
Yeah.
Now that may just be a £25 transaction to get that done, but the majority of the main insurers, if that action is not taken, would not pay out if something was to happen at the site. We have had specific examples of this at VPS, where there are extremely large, expensive office blocks that are located in the city centre. Now, the reason why is that if you can imagine, if you've got an open letterbox and if you've vacated the site, the post and the junk mail isn't going to stop coming.
Yeah.
So it piles up behind the letterbox. All someone needs to do is go in there and put a match through it, and then the building's at a flame.
And it's gone.
And that is your responsibility to ensure that letterbox has been sealed. Otherwise, technically, the combustibles behind that, they have been given access to. So it's extremely important. And again, one of the biggest things, and all the sites that I drive past, is always the main thing that people don't pick up on, is ensuring that letterbox is sealed.
So a £25 seal could save you literally millions, because if an insurer doesn't pay out, you're on your own.
Yes, and as we all know, insurers will do whatever they can to not pay out. So it's important that from your perspective, that you've got the confidence in the person that you know that is going to the site, knows what they are looking for, and knows what they need to be securing from a vacant property perspective.
And have you got any sort of examples in Yorkshire of sites and properties that you've helped?
Absolutely. I mean, we deal with such a broad range of property, whether that be because we've got a social arm of our company as well, so whether that be the local housing associations that we work with, or right up to the real big projects. And one of those, the best example, was probably Hickleton Hall, which is based in Doncaster. It's an extremely large stately home. Stately homes are full of things that people would like to remove from stately homes.
Oh, yeah.
Copper wiring, lead on the roof, all the boilers. So we were tasked by the company Sue Ryder, the charity that actually owned the property, after they closed it down, unfortunately, to go in and provide the most effective, cost-effective security solution. Now, man guarding is another thing to come on. It's one of those things that people will always revert to when looking for security. But because of the ever spiralling cost, the increase of national living wage, for some companies it's not just a viable security solution. So we went in there, did one of our full free site risk assessments, where we go in and do a 52-point check question on the property, look at what it needs. Is it low, medium risk? We'll also do an evaluation of the local area, look at crime statistics, and provide a bespoke solution based on what we believe that site needs. And in this instance for Hickleton Hall, we secured the entire property with our steel screens on the outside, also provide internal security alarms as well to monitor that, as well as smoke alarms. Now, the reason we provide smoke alarms is that Hickleton Hall, prior to us installing these smoke alarms, they were receiving 5 or 6 call-outs from the fire department every single week. Now, I didn't actually know this, but as soon as you go over a certain amount of call-outs by the fire brigade, they will start to fine you.
Oh, right, okay.
So they were fining Hickleton Hall between £1,500 to £1,600 a week for unfulfilled call-outs, basically. So it's £6,000 a month that's just basically going down the drain. So because we can go and install our smoke detectors and we can respond to that, I can assure you that our call-out charge is significantly less than that, and it's much, much, much better monitored in terms of the fact that we can respond to it with a local team, as opposed to dragging resource out of local government and having to send that to what was basically an unfulfilled call-out charge. So
it sounds like Fort Knox, that one.
It needed to be Fort Knox. There was around about £500,000 worth of lead that was on the roof alone. Because of the high profile of the site, it was in the local paper, it was in the local news. Everyone who would want to go into a site like that to remove things would have been made aware of it quite quickly.
And the obvious question, did anyone get in and steal the £500,000 lead roof?
Before we were there was an issue at site. There was numerous issues at site, and then when it was raised to us, we managed to secure the property within 24 hours, and there has been 0 issues at that site since.
Well, you heard it here first. Nick, it's fantastic to talk with you and hear just a bit more and an insight into VPS. Now, if anyone wanted to sort of touch base with you and talk through any of their issues, what's the best number to reach you on?
The best number to contact me on, I'll give you my email address, which is nicholas.by@vpsgroup.com, and the best contact telephone number is my mobile number, which is 07738 818 874.
Nick, fantastic, and thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you very much.
Alex Goldstein's top tip.
When it comes to our homes, we form such an emotional connection, and for many of us, we have worked very hard over numerous years to be able to afford the property in the first place. So when it comes to selling our beloved home, homeowners often lose sight that it's their most sizable financial asset. So why do some choose to cut a corner? It defies all logic to instruct a conveyancing solicitor because they were cheap, or an estate agent who'll sell your home for £50 for the same reason, or have that extension done because the builder could get lower quality materials. My absolute top tip is to never cut a corner when it comes to your home. It is the one asset that has been historically proven to be the safest investment you can make over the medium to long term. So if you're going to add value with an extension, get it done to the appropriate standard. A cheap estate agent or solicitor will only cost you down the line. Value for money does not mean the cheapest or indeed the most expensive deal. It's about getting the job done for the best result at the right price. As with everything in life, you get what you pay for. So don't make it at the expense of your most valuable asset. What a show! That's all from the Alex Goldstein Property Show. More details, tips, tricks and industry insight can be found on the website alexgoldstein.co.uk and of course all my social media channels. Alternatively, drop me a line on alex@alexgoldstein.co.uk. Make sure as well you look out for my new Yorkshire Post property column, which is out in late July. The next episode is out on the 1st of August, so make sure you tune in for that. Until next time.